Welcome to Chantix Multimedia live stream for Friday, October the 30th. Wow, 30th already. Streaming live to your device from beautiful Brisbane in Australia. I'm Umesh Chandra, your host for today. And here's what's making news. The Queensland government is expected to announce whether its border will open with New South Wales or not. And we will be joining our Premier a little bit later on in the show. And France is an emergency alert after 3 people were killed in a knife attack in Nice. The boss of Australia Post has hit back at her critics, and we'll see the move that was brought about with the Prime Minister there as well. And Europe has recorded its highest number of COVID-19 cases amid the warnings of difficult winter ahead. So follow us for key news, developments, coronavirus updates and live streams from Australia and from around the world. But first, let's take a look at the weather and for this election weekend in Queensland. And here is Dilraj with the latest on the weather.
Good morning everyone. Weather forecast for the rest of today is maximum 31 degree. Brisbane area is mostly sunny with 0% chances of rain. Light winds becoming north to northeasterly 15 to 25 km per hour in the middle of the day, then becoming light. Fire danger is high. Sun protection is recommended till 3:10 p.m. and UV index is predicted to reach 10, that is very high. Tomorrow minimum will be 20 and maximum will be 31. Brisbane area will be mostly cloudy with high chances of rain. A thunderstorm likely from the late morning, possibly swell. Winds northerly 15 to 35 km per hour, becoming light in the evening. Sun protection is recommended till 3:15 and UV index is predicted to reach 10, that is very high. And on Sunday minimum will be 19 and maximum will be 33. Brisbane area will be mostly sunny with 20% chances of rain, and sun protection again is recommended to around 3:15 and UV index is predicted to reach 10, that is very high. Till tomorrow, stay safe and enjoy a lovely weekend. Thank you.
Yes, a big weekend here in Brisbane as we now coming into the election, and of course the election fever is all set to set in as everyone gets ready to vote. So right now, as we know that in the bulletin today, we will have Queensland border decision expected today, and young child among new Victoria coronavirus cases, and Australia Post CEO lawyer says no reason that she should be stood down, and 3 killed in that attack at Notre Dame Church in Nice in France. Well, let's begin with the headlines first.
Hitting the hustings for the final day of the election campaign. The handling of the COVID crisis has been one of the key issues, and we should know later this morning whether the Premier Anastasia Palaszczuk will open the borders to New South Wales. France has raised its security alert to the highest level after a deadly knife attack at a church in the city of Nice. A man has beheaded a woman and killed 2 others at the Notre Dame Basilica. President Emmanuel Macron says France is under attack and security will be stepped up at schools and places of worship. The shocking incident comes at a time of extreme tension in France amid debate about the republication of caricatures of the Prophet Muhammad by the satirical newspaper Charlie Hebdo. Australia Post's chief executive has hit back at the Prime Minister, with her lawyer accusing him of humiliating her in Parliament. Scott Morrison used question time to call for Christine Holgate to stand aside, pending an investigation into the purchase of 4 Cartier watches worth $20,000 as gifts for senior executives. Ms Holgate's lawyer says there were no grounds for his client to be stood down. The coronavirus pandemic has wrought havoc with Australia's sporting calendar, and now it's claimed another event. Next year's Adelaide 500 supercar race has been scrapped due to COVID-19. It's the country's largest streetcar race and was going to be the last under the existing contract, but the state government says it won't be renewing the deal at all.
So those are the headlines for today, and of course we know that in Brisbane yesterday there was a big Citizenship Ceremony which was held at the Brisbane Entertainment Centre, but run by Brisbane City Council. As we know, Brisbane City Council normally holds its citizenship ceremonies at the City Hall, But currently, under the current conditions, that because there's only limited number of people that can come in, that does not make it viable. It does not make it a viable proposition to be held at Brisbane City Hall, and so that's why they always hold it. The last two have been held at the Brisbane Entertainment Centre, but last night saw double the number of people which we had before because of the easing of the restrictions, and there were close to 700 people who received their citizenship certificates last night. Here's a glimpse of what happened there last night.
With DSC, Commander 1st Division, and Ms Julie O'Connor. Group Captain Ian Carty, representing Air Commodore Veronica.
And that's Councillor Andrew Wine, the Chair, who is welcoming everyone to the event.
Commissioner Katarina Carroll. Mr Michael Chan, President of the Chinese Club of Queensland, and Ms Diane Quinn. Mr Mohammed Farooq Adam, President Muslim Business Council, and Ms Amina Adam. Mr Wai Kiong Chan, Vice President of Australia-Malaysia Business Council of Queensland, and Ms Shona Luhanan Gibson. Mr Umesh Chandra OAM, President of the Global Organisation.
And after the formal introductions of the invited guests and the VIPs, the Lord Mayor comes and addresses everyone.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is fantastic to see so many of you here tonight for what is an incredibly important occasion, but also an incredibly important celebration. I want to also acknowledge the traditional custodians and owners of the land and pay my respects to the elders past, present and emerging. To all of our distinguished guests who have turned out in big numbers tonight to witness you become part of the Australian family officially. And I did want to embarrass Commander Gerald, who is always at these events, and I understand this is your last one. Please stand up. So here's Gerald is the commanding officer of HMAS Norton, so the local Navy base here, and he's been posted to Canberra, so we might not see so much of him. But thank you very much for joining us, and it's great that you have always been. You can take a seat, Jerry. I did say I would embarrass you.
And after the Lord Mayor's introduction, we have Senator Paul Scar with his address.
If I can first acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we meet for this important ceremony and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. Can I also give my respects to our Right Honourable Lord Mayor and also our Lady Mayoress, Nina Shriner. And can I just say, our Lady Mayoress does such a wonderful job in terms of charity work for this city. She raises tens and tens of thousands of dollars for people in need. So let's give our Lady Mayoress a round of applause. There is no greater honour as an elected official to the Australian Parliament than for me than to read this statement from the Immigration Minister. There is no greater honour. And I would just like to make a few remarks before I read the official statement. I'd like each and every one of you to reflect on what you bring to our beautiful country. You bring an appreciation and an understanding of how important our freedoms are. You bring an appreciation of the opportunity that there is in this country. And you bring an understanding of how unique the Australian family is. When I was first sworn into the Senate last year, I reflected on the fact that both the Leader of the Government in the Senate and the Leader of the Opposition in the Australian Senate had both been in your position. They were both new Australians. They both came, neither of them were born in this country, they came to our country, and they both, through hard work and determination, became the holders of two of the most senior positions in our country. Where else in the world could that happen? So
our total is 1,172, and in the total 24 hours we've had 4,191 tests. So once again, the testing rate is really good. We're satisfied with that, And once again, it's if you're sick, stay at home and get tested.
Apologies for cutting in there. The live just began, so we're joining with our Premier. That very important announcement.
And then the Deputy Premier, and then you'll hear separately from Dr. Young and the Deputy Commissioner, and you'll be able to ask them questions, and then we'll come back and answer any further questions. So today, I just want to advise Queenslanders the following on the advice of Dr. Young. Queensland will be, Victoria will be closed to Queensland. So that's step one, that remains closed, and that is a strong border decision that we have taken every step of the way. I think everyone will remember when Deb Frecklington called for all the borders to be open and the consequences that could have happened there. And the other initiative, the other area we're announcing today is that in relation to New South Wales, Greater Sydney will remain closed to Queensland, and that is 32 local government areas. Now, Dr. Young has provided advice to me in relation to community transmission, and as I said, Queensland will hear directly from Dr. Young about that. And in relation to the 1st of November opening date, we have been advised by the Deputy Commissioner, and he will talk to that will move to the 3rd of November from 1 a.m. That is to ensure that all the border passes that need to be renewed will be able to be renewed effectively and efficiently. So once again, a big thank you to Queensland for the great work that you have been doing, and I'll hand over to the Deputy Premier to make some comments. Thank you, Stephen.
Thank you so much, Premier. That is wonderful news that we again have no cases of community transmission. That gentleman in his 50s had travelled to Stockholm, travelled back from Stockholm and was in hotel quarantine. We continue to urge people in the Ipswich area to get tested. The Chief Health Officer will outline in a moment some wastewater results from Wynnum that are also concerning, and she will urge people in that area to go and get tested. Our Premier and this government, our Premier is one who does what she says she will do. She said she would listen to the health advice. She said we would review the border arrangements at the end of the month, and that is exactly what has happened here. We monitored very, very closely the community transmission in New South Wales and Victoria, and based on the Chief Health Officer's advice, the Queensland border will remain closed to people who travel through Victoria and through the 32 local government areas of Greater Sydney. That was precisely the health advice. That's what we have done today, what we've been determined to do throughout this pandemic. The adjustment of the arrangements will come into effect at 1 a.m. on the 3rd. The Deputy Commissioner will speak to those arrangements. This is a substantial change to our border arrangements, and so it will take that time to ensure that they can be implemented smoothly. But I think what you can see here is a very, very stark contrast. Our Premier, who listens to the advice and acts on the advice, versus Deb Frecklington, who said she wouldn't borrow and announced yesterday she would borrow. She said she would cut, and she announced yesterday. She said she wouldn't cut, and she announced yesterday she would cut. She said she would have big, bold, visionary plans, but instead there are no big, bold, visionary plans. And she said she would listen to the health advice, but we now know that she will only listen to Gladys and others in the LNP. So that's the choice here. A Premier who listens to the advice and does what she says, or one who says one thing and does another.
No, we'll just now hand over to Dr. Young and the Deputy Commissioner, and then we'll come back. So we'll go.
Dr. Janet Young.
So good news again for Queensland. One new case overnight, a gentleman in his 50s who returned from Stockholm and was in hotel quarantine in the Gold Coast and will now be admitted to the Gold Coast University Hospital. It proves that our quarantine process is keeping Queensland safe. Then we also saw that positive sewage result in Carroll Park. I'm waiting on a retest for that sewage. Then we've just recently been told of a positive sewage test result in Wynnum. So it's really important that Queenslanders continue to come forward and get tested if they have any symptoms. That is critically important. There is a concern that we might have virus circulating. The best way to deal with that is to come forward and get tested. So anyone who lives out in that Ipswich area or who lives in Wynnum, it's really important in particular that you come forward and get tested. There are fever clinics available, and we turn around most of those tests within 24 hours. So it's quick and simple, but absolutely critical. Now, I have reviewed the situation in New South Wales. Prior to yesterday, they had 4 local government areas in Sydney that had cases of community transmission that New South Wales was unable to link to any known clusters, which means that they have transmission and they don't know where it's coming from. Then yesterday they had 4 new cases, and one of those cases they could not link to any other known clusters. The other 3 cases were linked to that case. So that meant then another area of Sydney was having cases. New South Wales put out an alert for 6 different sites across the city where they were concerned that transmission could have occurred. So based on that new information yesterday and the information up to that point, I believe it's important that Queensland remain closed to those 32 LGAs in Sydney. So as I said, there were 4 LGAs, then there was this new case which has involved additional LGAs, and we know that Sydney, of course, is one city and people move around that city. So that's why those 32 LGAs all need to be declared as hotspots. Now, outside those 32 LGAs, there have not been any cases in the previous 28 days. So that is really good news, and New South Wales has done really exceptionally well. I mean, they had a hard start because of those cases that came into New South Wales from Melbourne, and it's taken them a while to get on top of those original cases. And we can see that their biggest risk is still that southwestern part of Sydney. That's where they're continuing to have those cases, and then every so often they'll have cases elsewhere in Sydney because people from that area have gone there, seeded an outbreak. Then New South Wales has got on top of it because they do have very good systems, but they're still struggling to get on top of those cases in the southwestern part. So the decision is that Queensland will remain closed to New South Wales, to those 32 LGAs, but as of 1 a.m. on the 3rd of November, the rest of New South Wales is open and people will be able to travel up into Queensland for any reason at all. And Queenslanders will be able to travel down into New South Wales to those areas for any reason at all. And they can travel via Sydney Airport at Mascot, but they will need to then travel through Sydney without stopping in Sydney to get to those areas outside those 32 LGAs in Sydney.
So then how do you arrive at the decision to stop people outside?
So there you are, that's the update. But looking at the terms and conditions and the way that it might be administered, there could be a little bit of logistical challenge there as well. But anyway, that's the way, and that's where we are, and that's that big announcement there from Jeanette Yang. And because the Premier, as she has mentioned, that she will always act on the advice of the Chief Health Officer. Well, right now it's time to look at some of the news in brief. First, we go to France, where the French police are investigating that knife attack in the Nice church. French anti-terrorism prosecutors are investigating a knife attack at a church in the southern city of Nice that killed at least 3 people and injured several others. That is rather disturbing news, and world leaders have all condemned that move, including our Prime Minister and Prime Minister Narendra Modi as well. And of course, right now we know that Queensland is gearing up for the polls as we head to the polls, and of course we can hear that reflected even in our daily updates about coronavirus cases, which we just had from our Premier.
People are really hurting at the moment, which has really forced them to focus on politics.
The Liberal National Party is trying to rally voters on the southern Gold Coast by talking tough about the impact of the border restrictions on jobs.
So that's me there, I'm Laura. It's lovely to meet you. We understand that that border is a complete political tool because we live here. We know that's not keeping anyone safe.
The opposition's Laura Gerber holds Currumbin by a narrow margin. The electorate sits on the New South Wales border and hospitality businesses are struggling.
And we need the borders to come down. We need the continuity of freedom on the borders for people to come to Queensland.
The popularity of Premier Anastasia Palaszczuk has surged during the pandemic. Central to her campaign is the claim that by following the health advice and ignoring harsh criticism, she's kept people safe.
Deb Frecklington and Scott Morrison demanded that we reopen the borders before the 1st of July, almost the exact day Victoria's second wave of infections began.
But the election is a tight race. The Premier has a slim 2-seat majority, and that's why she's battling to take Gold Coast seats off the LNP like Currumbin, which would be a major upset.
No, well, you know...
We've got babies and dogs. We've got it all covered here this morning.
We're really shouldering our fair share of the burden of that, keeping everybody safe. We're a border town, we straddle that border every single day.
Labor's border stance looks like a winner. The LNP has muted its criticism about reopening to New South Wales. Here on the Gold Coast, Labor claims that Palaszczuk's border closure has resonated with retirees and older voters.
We'll see some people who maybe haven't voted Labor in a long time coming back to us because of COVID.
Despite its tough talk, the LNP admits it won't reopen to New South Wales if that goes against the health advice.
If that's the health advice, then we will follow it. Absolutely.
The opposition is trying to shift the conversation to the sluggish economy because they need to hold this seat and take 9 more to win government.
What I want to do is I want to promote the LNP's vision for Queensland, and it's about creating jobs, growing this economy so we can get Queensland working again.
We have the highest rate of unemployment, higher even than Victoria.
What could be a deciding factor for the LNP in close seats is whether preferences from minor parties land in their favour.
Labor is imposing 20% death tax.
Clive Palmer's wife Anna is running in Currumbin and his party is spending heavily on anti-Labor advertising.
I think people see through the death tax is an outright lie. The Premier has categorically ruled it out time and time again.
One key seat where preferences could see Labor lose is in inner city South Brisbane.
I have thought that the odds were stacked against me for quite some time.
Jackie Trad is the local member, but it's been a humbling term in office, falling from the heights of Queensland Deputy Premier to a backbencher fighting for her political survival.
The LNP came out with their preferencing arrangement last year. They made it clear that they were going to preference the Greens above Labor in South Brisbane. They needed to do absolutely everything they could to form government in Queensland.
Trad defeated the Greens' Amy McMahon last election, but this time polls and pundits say the Greens candidate is the front runner.
And here in South Brisbane, we're so close. So come down here, cast your vote for the Greens. Okay.
Jackie Trad resigned from the ministry in May after 2 controversies. One involving claims she interfered with the selection of a school principal and failed to declare an investment property. She was ultimately cleared by Queensland's corruption watchdog.
And I stepped down for my own purposes to actually have a really good focus and run at South Brisbane.
So you haven't made any...
And it will still be on the same channel. As we have seen from those reports there, that the preferences is what will play a major role. And of course, the regional areas will also play a major role. And tomorrow we are broadcasting live from Gold Coast. So, hope that you can all join in. And our studio guest tomorrow will be Dr. Chaitanya Unni, who's done some amazing things. And it will still be at the same time on the same channel. So make sure that you do tune in tomorrow as well. Right now, moving on, let's quickly go through this news. There's a lot to go through yet. Number one is Victoria, as it records 1 new case.
The 1 new case that we are certain of as a new case is a child who attended an early learning centre, the Good Start Early Learning Centre in Bundoora, Plenty Road, and the Department of Education has the Early Learning Centre already on its website as an exposure site. So the child attended there on the 20th to the 22nd of October. Her mother was identified as a case on the 25th, and the child was quarantined from that day onward. The Early Learning Centre was closed.
And of course, Premier Daniel Andrews says that the flights will resume before Christmas, so that would be a welcome news.
Pleasingly, with the split that the board has determined to make, so those practical matters around a new model for hotel quarantine coming to us next week, that shouldn't be the case. That means that we'll be able to hit the agreed target that we have agreed at a National Cabinet, and that is to have flights returning, to have people reunited with their families for Christmas. That's exactly what we want to work towards, and with no slippage or no change in the reporting date for that element of the work the board is doing, we'll get that next Friday. We'll consider it in some detail, and we'll make announcements shortly thereafter, I'd think, about the model that we're going to put in place, and then that'll mean we've already had, given that this has now been confirmed as being a 2-part process, I think there'll already be discussions. If not happened already, they'll be happening throughout the course.
So everyone's being a bit cautious in making those decisions, as we know what happened with the hotel security guards who were hired and who made the decision. So that's why you can't blame the leaders for taking their time in making those decisions. Sometimes it is those decisions which is made in a bit of a rush that has a big and long-lasting impact, and many times it could cost many people their positions, and that's all. Well, right now, Basil Zempilas, who is the mayor of Perth, he describes the moment that he had yesterday as a bad moment and a moment of bad broadcasting.
They're not my views, no. They're not my views. It was bad broadcasting. It was a moment of stupid broadcasting, and I regret that moment. They are not in keeping with my values, and that is not how I think.
Less than a week in the job, and you are a bit of an embarrassment to the city of Perth, guys.
I guess one of the things that we've learnt very early on in our training is that you're always a councillor of the City of Perth, and you're always, in my case, the Lord Mayor of the City of Perth. And for a brief moment, at 25 minutes past 5 yesterday, I forgot that I was the Lord Mayor of the City of Perth. That was my mistake. It's my job to be better than that, and it won't happen again.
Do you know what a transgender person is now? Because you didn't seem to know yesterday.
I do know what a transgender person is, and I regret the comments that I made because I know they're not helpful. I know they are not.
So, you know, he is being upfront and that he did make a mistake there. And many times people try and cover that, but, you know, I must give that much to him, that being quite upfront. Well, you know, many times all these positions and everything that the politicians go through, you know, they are not always very easy, as you will see from the next clip, that Labor MP Chris Hayes collapsed in the Federation chamber while giving a speech on the abuse of his cousin suffered as a child.
It became too much for me because the ongoing hypocritical nature of the institution regarding children and how they run schools and churches.
And that's when he collapsed.
The member for Fowler and Chief Opposition Whip, a much-loved member of this chamber, I think by all, had a sudden medical event in the Federation chamber. He recovered pretty quickly, and I've spoken with Bernadette, who is with him in hospital, where he will stay overnight for further tests. Can I thank Dr Freelander, who happened to be in the chair in the Federation chamber at the time, Dr Gillespie, who rushed up to the Federation chamber to provide assistance, and all those members on both sides who acted with care and with compassion. Can I thank the Prime Minister for his call to me about Chris's health. He is in good spirits, and we all wish him a very speedy recovery. And I say to the Chief Opposition Whip, if he wants leave, he should just ask for it. There are easier ways to get it than what occurred this morning, but I look forward to him being back in this chamber in good health.
The Prime Minister. On indulgence also, Mr Speaker, I thank the Leader of the Opposition for keeping us informed. I'm sure the House won't mind indulging me in saying in Chris's health without using his member's title here in this place. We may disagree on many things in this place, but I think we all agree that Chris Hayes is a very good bloke.
So there you go. As he mentioned, that there may be many things that they might disagree on, but they all agree that he is a good bloke. Well, right now it's time for a commercial break.
GlobeNet Realty. GlobeNet Realty has been the longest established, trusted and respected agency in its trade area. Washa Chandra, Director of GlobeNet Realty, provides honest and ethical service to her customers. If you are thinking of investing in Brisbane real estate market, or if you are seeking professional property management, then you should contact Usha Chandra today on landline 3865 4466 or mobile 0419 775 416. And for further updates, log on to our website www.globenetralty.com.au. GlobeNet Realty is your own local real estate agency. Situated at Shop 52281 Sandgate Road, Boondall. GlobeNet Realty. Real estate is our world.
And as we mentioned at GlobeNet Realty, real estate is the world. Well, right now on the world scene, let's see what's happening overseas, and there's unrest in Washington.
We have to talk! Somebody has to talk! Please come and talk!
Never in her worst nightmares did Karen Hilton imagine she'd be pounding on the windows of the 4th Police District headquarters in the nation's capital.
Yo! Let's go! Come out!
She's demanding the police come out and explain what happened to her 20-year-old son, Caron.
Come out!
It will soon get out of hand.
No justice, no peace! No
Police say Caron Hilton Brown was riding an electric scooter without a helmet and refused to stop, and was hit by a car as he tried to escape. He was taken to Washington Hospital Centre and placed on life support. His family say the police chased him illegally. They suspect it was a police car that hit him.
My child is laying on his deathbed. He's not dead. Like they're trying to pronounce it. Quran is not dead. You understand? So any which way you look at it, I want justice.
He loved his daughter. He had a big plan for her, you know. He had nice things set out for her. He had nice things set out for himself.
A few hours later, doctors did turn off the life support machines. Caron Hilton's parents were restrained by security and were not allowed in the room as he died. Word quickly spread. Another black man dead after an encounter with the police.
Well, these passions are really getting out of hand here. You can see the police struggling to keep these people out of the building. But you can understand a young man has died and these people want answers. What you don't hear at all is any mention of a Trump or a Biden. That seems irrelevant because what people here tell me is that these sorts of issues just keep on going no matter what politician is in the White House.
We want y'all white police officers or police officers, period.
So the situation there is getting out of hand, and of course you can see that the people are completely outraged and by that move, and of course that other shooting that we saw. So these are the scenes that are coming from the right now, ladies and gentlemen. Let's go to the functions and events that are taking place, and let's see what we've got in store for this weekend. Remember that a lot of restrictions are easing, so a lot of functions are taking place physically as well, but many people will get chance to connect via their social media feeds or live streams to join into those ones as well. So ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining in today, and that's all we have for you today. Don't forget that tomorrow we will be bringing to you the live cast all the way from beautiful sunny Gold Coast. We'll have a bit of an update of how the elections are going, and of course we will have our studio guest there tomorrow as well. And if she joins us is Dr. Chaitanya Unni from Gold Coast, the amazing work that she does out there in the community. So, we'll try and bring all this live update to you from Gold Coast tomorrow, because tonight is the GoPure Gold Coast's business networking function, another function which is completely sold out. And I'll tell you what, if you're planning on attending any of the functions, get in early, because all of the functions nowadays are getting sold out. Because of COVID restrictions, there's only a limited number of people that are allowed into these venues, and hence with the reduced number of attendees which are allowed, the tickets get sold out very, very quickly. So, if you're planning on attending one, don't leave it till the last minute as usual, because this time you will actually miss out. So until tomorrow, it's goodbye from me. Have a wonderful, wonderful day. Most importantly, stay safe.